Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
A young doctor discovered a little girl at the hospital door and took her home to feed her. But when his wife saw the child, she suddenly turned pale and clutched her heart. The cold October evening enveloped the small rural hospital with a damp chill. The wind blew fallen leaves across the asphalt paths, tossing them into puddles. The yellow light from the hospital windows illuminated the wet trees and benches in the darkness. Andres Sanchez, a rural doctor with 10 years of experience, wearily rubbed his eyes. It had been a tough day. 3 cases of pneumonia, a dislocated shoulder of a tractor driver, and an elderly man with another flare-up. At 33, Andres looked older, dark circles under his eyes, early wrinkles at the corners of his eyes, graying temples. But when he smiled, his face transformed, and sparks of warmth and kindness appeared in his gray eyes. He closed the last patient's chart, stretched until his spine cracked, and glanced at the clock. Almost 8 in the evening. Catalina had probably already prepared dinner and was waiting for him at home. The thought of his wife made him smile. 6 years together, and he still rushed to her like a schoolboy on his first date. Antonia Perez, I'm wrapping up, he said to the nurse who was sorting through charts at the reception desk. Tomorrow morning, please check the referrals for the tests I ordered for Cornejo. Okay, Andres, the elderly Antonia nodded, adjusting her glasses. Go home already. You look exhausted. Yeah, it's been quite a day. He threw on his worn coat and wrapped a scarf around his neck. See you tomorrow. Andres flicked the light switch in his office and headed for the door, checking his phone as he went. 2 missed messages from Catalina. He hadn't had time to call her back. She was probably asking if he needed anything on his way home. He mentally made a note, stopped by the pharmacy. His wife had been having frequent headaches lately, and they had run out of painkillers the day before. He was just about to grab the door handle when he heard a faint knock. At first, he thought it was nothing, maybe just a branch tapping against the window, but the knock came again, persistent though weak. Who's this now? He muttered and opened the door. A little girl stood on the doorstep, light brown hair, tied in 2 uneven braids, now damp, big gray eyes looking frightened and pleading, her thin jacket soaked from the drizzle, and dirt on her boots. Hello, the girl stammered, shifting nervously from one foot to the other. Are you the doctor? Andres crouched down to be at eye level with the child. Yes, I'm a doctor. And you are? Why are you here alone at this time? The girl sniffled and wiped her nose with the sleeve of her jacket. My name is Sonia. I'm 6 years old. She held up 6 fingers to confirm her age. My mom is very sick. She's lying down and can't get up, and she says she feels very bad. She told me to go to the doctor and bring him. Andres' heart tightened. A child wandering the streets alone in this weather. What were people thinking? Sending a 6-year-old girl to seek help on her own? Where's your dad, Sonia? I don't have a dad, the girl replied simply. He died a long time ago. It's just me and Mom. I see. Andres stood up and looked at Antonia. Antonia, who's on call tonight? The ambulance is in the neighboring village. There was an accident on the highway. They won't be back for at least 2 hours, Antonia replied, looking at the drenched girl with pity. Andres thought for a moment. He had already finished his shift, Catalina was waiting at home, but how could he leave the child and her sick mother without help? Sonia, do you know your address, where you and your mom live? Yes, the girl nodded. Forest Street, house 12. It's not far from here. Mom says we live 5 minutes away from the hospital. How long have you lived here? 2 months, Sonia replied. We moved when Mom got sick. Andres frowned. It was strange that he didn't know about the new residents. In a small village like this, everyone knew each other. But then again, the last few months had been so busy that he might not have noticed. Okay, Sonia, we'll call the ambulance for your mom. He took out his phone and dialed the dispatcher, explaining the situation, giving the address, and asking them to send a team as soon as they returned from the accident. But that won't be until at least 2 hours, Andres, the dispatcher replied. Maybe you can check on her yourself? Andres sighed. Of course, he could go, but without the necessary equipment, there wasn't much he could do. And dragging a child back out in this weather. Listen, Sonia, he crouched down again in front of the girl, we've called an ambulance for your mom. They'll come and help her. In the meantime, I'll take you to my house. My wife will make you some tea, you'll warm up and dry off, and then we'll go to your mom together. Okay, the girl nodded uncertainly. But are you really a doctor? Mom said I needed to find Dr. Sanchez. Is that you? Andres raised an eyebrow in surprise. Yes, I'm Andres Sanchez. Does your mom know me? I don't know, Sonia shrugged. She just said to find Dr. Sanchez. The situation was getting stranger, but Andres decided to figure it out later. Right now, the most important thing was to help the child and her mother. Antonia, I'm leaving. Get in touch with me when the ambulance is available. Antonia nodded, eyeing the girl with curiosity. Andres took Sonia's hand and led her outside. The rain had almost stopped, but the cold wind still cut to the bone. Sonia shivered, and Andres took off his scarf, wrapping it around the girl's thin neck. We don't have far to go, just a couple of blocks, he said, heading toward the old two-story house where he and Catalina rented an apartment. Sonia walked beside him, holding his hand tightly. She looked around attentively, as though memorizing the path. What's your wife's name? She asked, jumping over a puddle. Catalina, Andres smiled. She's a teacher at the local school. She teaches younger classes. I'll go to school soon too, Sonia said seriously. Mom says I'll be good at it because I read a lot. You can already read? Andres asked in surprise. At 6? Yes, Mom taught me, the girl said proudly. I've already read The Wizard of Oz and Malish and Carlson. And Mom likes reading me fairy tales. Andres listened with genuine interest as the child chattered. Sonia had an unusually mature seriousness for her age, but there was also a childlike spontaneity. This combination is typical for children who spend a lot of time around adults. As they talked, they quickly reached Andres' house. He opened the building's front door, letting Sonia go ahead, and they climbed to the second floor. At the door to the apartment, Andres took out the keys and called out, Catalina, I'm home, and I'm not alone. The door swung open, and Catalina Martinez appeared in the doorway, slender, with light brown hair pulled into a messy bun, warm brown eyes, wearing a home dress with a flower print and fluffy slippers. Finally, I was starting to. She began, then stopped short when she saw the girl. Andres noticed how his wife's face suddenly changed. She paled so quickly that it seemed like the blood drained from her face in an instant. Her eyes widened, her lips trembled, and she grabbed the doorframe with her hand. Catalina? Andres called anxiously, stepping toward her. What's wrong? Catalina didn't answer. She stared at Sonia as if she had seen a ghost. Her fingers turned white from gripping the doorframe. Hello, Sonia said politely, shifting from foot to foot, not noticing the strange reaction of the woman of the house. I'm Sonia. I'm 6 years old. My mom is sick, and the doctor brought me here. At the sound of the girl's voice, Catalina flinched. Her eyes rolled back, her knees buckled, and she began to slowly sink to the floor. Catalina. Andres barely managed to catch his wife, preventing her from falling. Sonia, frightened, pressed herself against the wall, watching as the doctor carried his wife into the apartment. She hesitated, then quietly closed the door behind her. The apartment was small but cozy. There was a sofa covered with a hand-knit blanket in the living room, bookshelves along the walls, a TV. On the coffee table was an unfinished cup of tea and an open book. Andres laid Catalina down on the sofa, quickly checked her pulse, unbuttoned the top button of her blouse, then went to the kitchen and returned with a glass of water in which he dissolved a few drops of medicine. He lifted his wife's head and helped her drink. What happened? Catalina whispered as she started to come around. Her gaze immediately found Sonia, who was quietly standing in the doorway, hesitant to come in. "You fainted," Andres replied, looking intently at his wife. "What's going on, Catalina?" Catalina didn't answer. She slowly sat up on the sofa, still staring at the girl. "Who is she?" she whispered. "This is Sonia," Andres replied, growing more concerned about his wife. "Her mom is sick. I've called an ambulance. In the meantime, I brought her here." "Catalina, you're scaring me. What's happening?" Catalina finally tore her gaze away from the child and looked at her husband. The genuine terror in her eyes sent a chill down Andres' spine. "Andres, can't you see?" she whispered, her lips trembling. "Don't you understand?" "What am I supposed to see?" he asked, confused. Catalina turned her gaze back to Sonia. In the dim hallway, the girl looked like a small, frightened creature. "Little girl," Catalina called with a trembling voice, "Sonia, come here, please, don't be afraid." Sonia hesitantly took a few steps and stopped in front of the sofa. Catalina stretched out her trembling hand and touched the girl's face, brushing a strand of hair away from her eyes. Sonia didn't pull back from the touch, but she didn't lean into it either. "What's your last name, Sonia?" Catalina asked. "Gonzalez," the girl replied. "Sonia Gonzalez. Are you really the doctor's wife? You have very beautiful hair." Catalina gave a faint smile, but the smile didn't reach her eyes, which were full of tears. "Thank you, Sonia. Yes, I'm the doctor's wife. And you're probably hungry and cold? Let me make you some hot tea and sandwiches." Sonia nodded, and Catalina stood up, still unsteady on her feet. Andres wanted to help her, but she stopped him with a gesture. "I'll manage," she said, and went to the kitchen, moving as if in a dream. Andres watched her with a puzzled expression and then turned to Sonia. "Don't be afraid, Sonia. My wife just wasn't expecting visitors. She'll recover from the surprise and come back. In the meantime, you can take off your coat. Let me hang it up to dry." Sonia obediently removed her wet jacket and handed it to the doctor. Andres noticed that the girl's clothes were of good quality, but not new. Probably from someone else, but carefully adjusted to fit. "Tell me, has your mom been sick for long?" he asked, hanging the jacket on the radiator. "For a long time," Sonia replied seriously. "She says she's going to go to heaven to be with Daddy soon, and I'll stay here. I don't want her to go." The last words the girl spoke were so quiet that Andres barely heard them. His heart tightened. It seemed the girl's mother had a serious illness, possibly in the terminal stage, and she had probably been preparing her daughter for the inevitable. But why had they moved to this godforsaken place where there wasn't even a proper hospital? From the kitchen came the sound of broken dishes, and Andres hurried there. Catalina was standing in the middle of the kitchen. Pieces of a cup lay at her feet, and tears were flowing down her cheeks. "Catalina, what's wrong with you?" he asked, stepping toward her and hugging her shoulders. "You're scaring me." "I'm sorry," she whispered, wiping her tears. "I'm fine. My hands are just shaking." "I can see that," Andres said gently. "But why? What happened?" Catalina looked him straight in the eyes. "Andres, we need to talk immediately, alone." "Okay," he nodded, feeling the anxiety growing in his chest. "Let me make tea for Sonia first, and you go to the bedroom. I'll come right after." Catalina nodded and quickly left the kitchen, not even glancing at the broken pieces of the cup. Andres hurriedly cleaned up the shards, made sandwiches with cheese and sausage, poured tea into a large mug with a cat drawing on it, returned to the living room where Sonia was sitting on the edge of the sofa, swinging her legs. "Here, have a snack," he smiled, setting the tray in front of her. "Then you can watch cartoons." He turned on the TV and found a children's channel. "I'll be right back." "Okay," Sonia nodded, already biting into her sandwich. Andres noticed how eagerly she was eating and thought that perhaps the girl hadn't eaten since the morning. He went to the bedroom and closed the door behind him. Catalina was sitting on the edge of the bed, holding a framed photograph in her hands. When Andres entered, she raised her tear-filled eyes to him. "Andres," she said quietly, "I need to tell you something. Something I've been silent about for 5 years." Catalina squeezed the photograph tighter in her hands. Andres sat next to her, feeling something heavy and unavoidable closing in on him. "Do you remember this photo?" Catalina asked, handing the frame to her husband. "It's my mother when she was a child." Andres looked at the old black and white photo. A little girl about 6 years old with light brown braids and big gray eyes. "Now, look closely at Sonia," Catalina whispered. "She's a perfect copy, the same eyes, the same chin, even the mole on her neck is in the same place." "What does that mean?" Andres frowned. "What do your mother and this girl have to do with each other?" Catalina took a deep breath and set the photograph aside. "Andres, our daughter didn't die during childbirth 5 years ago." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Andres felt the blood drain from his face. "What are you saying, Catalina?" he cried, clenching his fists. "Our daughter didn't die," Catalina repeated with a trembling voice. "All the documents were forged. My mother arranged everything." Andres stood, unable to believe his ears. 5 years ago, when Catalina was giving birth, he had been called in for an emergency surgery, a school bus had crashed, and many children were injured. He had spent almost a day in the operating room, and when he returned, he was told that their daughter had died. Catalina had been unconscious, and complications had set in. When she woke up and learned of their child's death, she had a nervous breakdown. "Catalina, what are you talking about? Why did your mother do this? Why did you give up our child?" Andres asked, his voice trembling with anger. Catalina clenched her hands so tightly that her knuckles turned white. "My mother never accepted you. You know, she thought I made a mistake marrying a rural doctor with no prospects. When I got pregnant, she was furious. During the birth, I was weak, scared, under the influence of strong medications. My mother was with me the whole time and kept telling me that the child would ruin our lives, that you weren't ready for such responsibility, that we would be poor, that we didn't have the conditions to raise a daughter." "And you believed her?" Andres asked with pain in his voice. "I was in postpartum depression, Andres," Catalina exclaimed, tears in her eyes. "I was broken, both physically and emotionally. My mother, Veronica Navarro, said she found a good, wealthy family who would adopt our daughter, that the child would grow up in comfort and have everything we could never give her." Andres stepped toward the window, unable to look at his wife. Outside, it was drizzling, and the raindrops slid down the glass like tears. "And you agreed? Just gave up our daughter?" he asked, his voice filled with fury. "I wasn't myself," Catalina said quietly. "I believed my mother that it would be better for the baby. By the time you came back to the hospital, everything was done. I was told there was no turning back, that if the truth came out, we could both be jailed for forging documents." Andres suddenly turned toward his wife. "Who was involved in this? Who forged the documents?" "My mother arranged everything," Catalina said, looking at him with pleading eyes. "She had connections, money. Everything was set up to look like a tragic case during childbirth. 5 years, Catalina, 5 years I lived with the thought that our daughter was dead," Andres said bitterly. "I couldn't tell you. First out of fear, then out of shame. Over time, it became impossible. How could I admit to the person I love that I voluntarily gave away his child?" Andres rubbed his temples with his hands. It didn't make sense. For 5 years, he had mourned a dead daughter he hadn't even gotten to see, while Catalina had carried this awful secret. "And you think Sonia is our daughter?" he finally asked. "I don't know for sure," Catalina whispered quietly. She moved closer but didn't dare touch him. "But when I saw her, something inside me recognized her," she continued. "The resemblance to my mother as a child, the same eyes, the same chin, even the mole on her neck in the same place." "She said her mom was dying," Andres whispered. That they moved here 2 months ago, that her mom knows me, and that she sent the girl to me on purpose. Andres, do you hate me? Catalina whispered, her voice barely audible. Andres looked at her, her pale face, red eyes from crying, trembling lips. Anger battled with love and pain. I don't know what I feel right now, Catalina. I'm confused. I'm angry. He stopped when he heard a knock on the door. Catalina flinched. Who is it? I don't know. Andres left the bedroom. Sonia was still sitting on the sofa, engrossed in the cartoons and finishing her tea. When she saw Andres, she smiled. Doctor, someone's knocking at the door, she said. Yes, Sonia, I hear it. His voice sounded strange, even to him. Andres opened the door. Esteban Ruiz, a paramedic from their hospital, stood on the doorstep. Mr. Sanchez, sorry for the disturbance, Esteban began. We came on a call to Forest Street, 12. A woman in serious condition refuses to go to the hospital without her daughter. She says her girl is with you and needs to speak to you urgently. Andres gripped the doorknob so hard his knuckles turned white. What does she look like? Emaciated, pale, Esteban replied. By all signs, she has a serious illness in the late stage, but her mind is clear. She asked us to tell you it concerns your family and that she is Sonia's mother. Catalina, standing by the bedroom door, gasped softly. I'll come right away, Andres nodded. Esteban, do you have a car? Yes, I'm in a service vehicle, the paramedic answered. Good, wait a minute. Andres closed the door and turned to his wife. I'm going there. Sonia will come with me. I'm going too, Catalina said firmly. Are you sure? This might be hard, Andres asked, looking at his wife closely. If this is our daughter, I need to be there, Catalina replied firmly. Hearing the conversation, Sonia jumped off the sofa. Are we going to Mom? Is she feeling better? Andres crouched down in front of the girl. Yes, Sonia, we're going to your mom, but I don't know if she's feeling better. We need to check for ourselves. I'll get dressed quickly. Catalina disappeared into the bedroom and returned a minute later, already wearing a coat and boots. Andres helped Sonia put on her still wet jacket, and they headed to the car. Throughout the ride, Sonia excitedly looked out the window. Catalina, however, sat silently, gripping her hands tightly on her knees. Esteban's paramedic car arrived at the address within a few minutes. It was a small house on the outskirts of the village, one of the oldest but neatly renovated on the outside. There was light in the windows. When they entered, they were greeted by a young woman named Irene. The woman is in the bedroom. She refuses hospitalization. She says she needs to talk to you first, Irene informed them. Andres nodded and walked to the indicated room. Catalina and Sonia followed him. In the small bedroom, lit by a dim lamp, a woman in her 40s lay on the bed. Her face was gaunt with sharp features, her eyes sunken, and her skin had a yellowish tint, but her gaze remained clear and determined. Mom. Sonia ran to the bed. The woman smiled weakly and stroked the girl's head. Good job, Sonia, she said. You found the doctor, just like I asked. Andres approached, assessing the patient's condition with a professional eye. Hello, I'm Andres Sanchez. You wanted to see me? The woman shifted her gaze to him and then to Catalina, who was standing by the door. You came together? That's good. It'll be easier this way, she said. Who are you? Andres asked. My name is Marina Morales, the woman introduced herself. I'm Sonia's adoptive mother. But Mom. Sonia started to speak. It's okay, sweetheart, Marina said, addressing the girl. Go to your room and play for a bit. I need to talk to the doctor and his wife. But Mom, the girl began, but Marina gently interrupted. I won't go anywhere. The adults just need to talk. Sonia reluctantly nodded and left the room. Once the door closed behind her, Marina took a deep breath as though gathering strength. I have liver cancer, terminal stage. I have no more than a month left. That's what the doctors in the regional hospital said. You need to go to the hospital, Andres began. No, Marina said firmly. I know I'm dying, and I want to spend my last days at home with my daughter. But before that, I need to return Sonia to her real parents, she said directly, looking at Andres and Catalina. A silence hung in the room. Andres felt Catalina grab his hand. Where are you from? He began. You know, Marina weakly smiled. I've been looking for you for a long time. 5 years ago, my husband and I adopted Sonia. We were told that her mother had given her up right after birth, that the father was unknown. We were happy, even though we had tried to have children and couldn't. Marina coughed, and Andres helped her drink some water. 2 years ago, my husband died in an accident, she continued, leaning back on the pillow. And then I got sick. When the doctors told me there was no hope, I started looking for Sonia's biological parents. I didn't want her to go to an orphanage after I died. How did you find us? Catalina asked, cautiously watching Marina. It wasn't easy. A detective, an old colleague of my husband, helped me. He found witnesses, a nurse who was present at the birth. For money, she told him the whole truth. Marina coughed again, and Andres handed her a glass of water. Veronica Navarro, Marina continued. My mother-in-law arranged everything. Catalina signed the abandonment papers while under the influence of strong medications and postpartum depression. You were told the baby died, and we were told that the mother gave her up without mentioning the father. But how did you know it was us? Andres asked. From the records in the maternity ward that the detective got through his connections. It listed your last name, Marina said. After that, it wasn't hard. In a rural area, there aren't that many doctors like us. At that moment, Sonia approached, holding a photo album. Mom, can I show the doctor my drawings? Of course, sweetheart, Marina smiled. Sonia opened the album and started showing Andres her drawings, a house, trees, a cat, clouds. Ordinary children's drawings, but to Andres, they were works of art. He said, Very beautiful, Sonia. You have real talent. The girl beamed at the praise and ran off to get more drawings. Marina watched her leave. I moved here 2 months ago, Marina continued. When I found out where you live, I wanted to make sure you were good people and that Sonia would be happy with you. But why didn't you just come to us? Andres asked. Why send Sonia alone? I've been feeling very bad today, Marina replied. I feel the end is near, and I realized I can't wait anymore. I told Sonia that you are her real parents and sent her to the hospital. I knew you were the on-call doctor today. You planned all of this? Andres didn't know what to feel, anger, regret, gratitude. Yes, Marina nodded. Sonia should be with her real parents. After I die, I want you to take her in and officially adopt her. Catalina approached the bed and took Marina's hand. You've raised our daughter all these years, you loved her. You're her real mother. Marina smiled faintly. We're both her mothers, but soon she'll need only you. Promise me you'll love her just as much as I did. We promise. Andres said firmly, looking at his wife, but now you need to go to the hospital, we'll be right there. Marina shook her head. No, I want to stay at home. I don't have much time left. Just visit us every day, so Sonia gets used to you, and so I can tell you everything about her, what she likes, what she fears, what she dreams about. Andres understood her. As a doctor, he knew that Marina should be hospitalized immediately. But he also understood her desire to spend her last days at home with her daughter, and perhaps they all needed this time to come to terms with what was happening. Okay, he agreed finally, but I'll come every day, keep an eye on your condition, and if it gets critical, we'll have to go to the hospital. Thank you, Marina simply said, but could you call Sonia now? She needs everything explained, and I want us to do it together. Catalina wiped away her tears and nodded. Of course, I'll call her. When she left, Marina looked at Andres. Don't judge her too harshly. She was young, scared, and influenced by her mother. She's not to blame. We both made mistakes, Andres quietly replied. I shouldn't have left her alone that day. I should have been there. Now you have a chance to make it right, Marina said. For Sonia. Catalina and Sonia entered the room. The girl looked confused and a little scared. Come here, sweetheart, Marina called, and Sonia climbed onto the bed next to her. Do you remember, I told you that I didn't give birth to you, that your real mom couldn't raise you, and your dad and I became your new parents? Sonia nodded seriously. I remember. You said you loved me like your own. Yes, sweetie, Marina stroked the girl's hair. And I will never stop loving you, but I'm going to go to Daddy in heaven soon, you know. And I don't want to leave you alone. I know, Sonia whispered, and in her child's eyes, there was so much understanding that the adults' hearts ached. These people, Marina gestured to Andres and Catalina, are your real parents. They're very good, and they'll take care of you when I'm gone. Sonia looked at Andres and Catalina, then back at Marina. But you won't leave right now? No, sweetheart, not right now, Marina smiled. We still have time, and we'll spend it together, all of us. The next 2 weeks passed like a blur for Andres and Catalina. Every day after work, they drove to the little house, where the dying woman and the 6-year-old girl gradually became a part of their lives. On that first evening after the heartfelt conversation, Marina insisted that Andres and Catalina go home. Sonia needs time to process all of this, she explained. Let's not rush. And they agreed, although Catalina barely held back her desire to stay and not let go of the daughter she had lost 5 years ago. The next day, Andres arrived first, right after his morning rounds at the hospital. He brought medicines that might ease Marina's condition. She was sitting in a chair by the window, wrapped in a blanket despite the warm weather. Sonia was playing at her feet with a worn stuffed bear. How are you feeling? Andres asked, carefully sitting down next to her. Like a person who has a few weeks left to live, Marina smiled crookedly. She spoke quietly, so Sonia wouldn't hear. But I'm glad I found you. Andres took her blood pressure, pulse, and listened to her lungs. The diagnosis was obvious, liver metastases, judging by the yellowish tint of her skin and sclera. Why are you refusing hospitalization? He asked. We could at least help ease your pain. At the hospital, Sonia won't be able to stay with me all the time, Marina shook her head. And our time is too precious to waste on hospital procedures. Besides, she glanced at the playing girl, I want her to remember me at home, not in a hospital bed with tubes. Andres understood her. As a doctor, he had seen many deaths and knew that sometimes dignity and comfort in the final days were more important than futile attempts to prolong agony. Tell me how you found us, he asked. Marina leaned back in her chair, gathering her strength. When I was diagnosed, my first thought was, what will happen to Sonia? We have no relatives. After my husband's death, we were completely alone, she paused, looking at her daughter with endless tenderness. I started gathering documents for Sonia. I was thinking of giving them to the guardianship authorities so they could find her a good family after my death, and then I discovered some oddities in her birth certificate. The dates didn't match, and the information about her mother was contradictory. And you started digging deeper, Andres stated. Yes. At first, it was just curiosity, then necessity. I hired a private detective, a former colleague of my husband from the police. He found witnesses, the nurse who helped with the birth and with the paperwork. For money, she told him the whole truth. Marina coughed, and Andres handed her a glass of water. Veronica Navarro, your wife's mother, arranged everything, Marina continued after catching her breath. Catalina did sign the abandonment, but she was under the influence of strong medications and postpartum depression. You were told that the child had died, and we were told that the mother had abandoned the child without naming the father. But how did you know it was us? Andres asked. The detective had connections in the maternity ward administration. He found the original records they hadn't destroyed. Your last name was listed as the father's, Marina said. After that, it wasn't hard. There aren't that many doctors named Sanchez in the area. At that moment, Sonia approached them, holding a photo album. Mom, can I show the doctor my drawings? Of course, sweetheart, Marina smiled. Sonia opened the album and began showing Andres her drawings: a house, trees, a cat, clouds. Ordinary children's drawings, but to Andres, they were masterpieces. He said. Very beautiful, Sonia, he said, barely holding back his emotions. You have real talent. The girl beamed with pride and ran off to get more drawings. Marina watched her go. I moved here 2 months ago, when I found out where you live, Marina continued. I wanted to observe you, to make sure you were good people, that Sonia would be happy with you. And what's your verdict? Andres tried to smile, but it came out strained. Positive, Marina smiled weakly in return. I've seen how you treat your patients, how you talk to children. I've heard about you from the neighbors. Everyone speaks well of you. And Catalina, she's a good teacher. The children love her. She blames herself for what happened, Andres said quietly. She shouldn't, Marina shook her head. Her mother is a master manipulator. I met with her, talked to her. This woman is convincing and ruthless. You met with Veronica Navarro? Andres was surprised. Yes, before I moved here. I wanted to hear her side, to understand why she did this. She was furious that I found out the truth, threatened me with the police, with the courts, but when she realized I had proof of her manipulations, she fell silent. What did she say? She said she did it for the sake of her daughter, that you couldn't provide a decent life for the child, that she had planned to tell the truth someday, but hadn't found the right moment. Sonia returned with new drawings, and the conversation had to be interrupted, but Andres understood enough. His mother-in-law had never liked him, thought he was unworthy of her daughter, but he never imagined she could do something so monstrous. In the evening, Catalina arrived. She brought fresh rolls and fruit. Sonia was already waiting for her at the door. The wariness from the previous day was replaced by childlike curiosity. Are you really my real mom? She asked directly when Catalina stepped over the threshold. Catalina froze, unsure of what to say. Marina came to the rescue. Sonia, do you remember we talked about how every child comes into the world from their mom's belly? Catalina is the mom who gave birth to you. And I'm the mom who raised you. Sonia thought for a moment, furrowing her brow. So, I have 2 moms, she finally asked. Yes, sweetheart, you have 2 moms, Marina smiled. And both of us love you very much. Catalina knelt down in front of the girl. Can I hug you, Sonia? The girl nodded, and Catalina carefully embraced her, afraid to startle her. Sonia stood still for a moment, but then her little arms uncertainly wrapped around Catalina's neck. During dinner, Marina watched as Andres and Catalina interacted with Sonia. Catalina cut an apple into thin slices, just the way Sonia liked it, and Andres told a funny story about a kitten he treated at the hospital. Sonia laughed, and her laugh sounded like a bell. She looks like both of you, Marina said later, when Sonia went to brush her teeth before bed. She has your eyes, Andres, and your chin, Catalina, and her character. Stubborn, like you, Andres. But forgiving, like you, Catalina. They fell silent, unsure of what to say. The years they had lost could never be regained, but now they had a future with a daughter they had once thought lost forever. I want you to know everything about Sonia, Marina spoke quickly, as if afraid she wouldn't have enough time. She's afraid of the dark, so we always leave a nightlight on. She likes to have stories read to her before bed, especially fairy tales. She loves oatmeal with apples and cinnamon, and she's allergic to citrus, especially oranges. They cause a rash and itching. Catalina took out a notebook from her bag and started taking notes. This information was priceless. She loves to draw, especially animals, Marina continued. I enrolled her in an art studio in the city, but we only managed to go to 3 classes before we moved. If possible, find her an art teacher. Of course, Catalina nodded. We have an art club at our school, I'll arrange it. Marina smiled. She loves to sing, although she's shy about her voice, and she has a favorite toy, a teddy bear. She can't sleep without it. The following days followed the same routine. Andres came in the morning, checked Marina's condition, which was steadily worsening, and left pain medication. Catalina came after school, often bringing new books for Sonia. They ate dinner together, played board games, and listened to Marina tell stories about Sonia's life. Sonia gradually grew accustomed to them. At first, she mostly stayed close to Marina, but slowly she began to show more interest in her biological parents. She showed Andres her toys, asked Catalina to braid her hair like she used to. One evening, when Sonia was already asleep, Marina called Andres and Catalina to her room. She looked especially exhausted, her skin had taken on an even yellower hue, and her eyes were sunken. I need you to promise me something, she said, struggling to get the words out. After I die, Sonia will have a hard time. She understands everything, but she's still a child. We'll be there, we'll help her through this, Catalina reassured her. I know, Marina took their hands, her own now almost transparent from the illness. But there's one more thing. Veronica Navarro, she might try to interfere when she finds out Sonia is with you. Andres tensed. We won't let her destroy our family again. For that, you'll need proof of her crime, Marina pointed to a dresser by the wall. In the top drawer, under my things, there's a folder. It has everything the detective collected, witness testimonies, copies of the forged documents, recorded conversations. Veronica Navarro paid everyone involved in this case to keep quiet, but money can't buy absolute loyalty, especially when it comes to a child's fate. Catalina walked to the dresser and pulled out the folder. Inside was exactly what Marina had described, photocopies of medical records with corrections to the death certificate, a fake pathologist's signature, even receipts for money received by some of the hospital staff. I wasn't planning to blackmail your mother, Marina explained, noticing the expression on Catalina's face. But I wanted to have guarantees that she wouldn't stop Sonia from finding a family. Thank you, Catalina whispered, flipping through the documents. You thought of everything. I've been thinking about Sonia since the day I held her in my arms 5 years ago, Marina answered simply. And I'll think about her even after I'm gone. 3 days after this conversation, Marina's condition worsened. The pain grew stronger, and the medicine no longer helped. Andres insisted on hospitalization, but she refused. I want to die at home with Sonia by my side. That night, she began internal bleeding. Andres administered first aid, but he knew it was the end. By morning, Marina had fallen into a coma. Sonia sat beside the bed, holding her hand. She didn't cry, only watched with her big gray eyes, which reflected an understanding beyond her 6 years. Mom is leaving, right? She asked Andres. Yes, Sonia, he didn't lie. Her time has come. She promised she'd watch over me from heaven, like Daddy, and that you'd take care of me, the girl said. And that's how it will be, Andres sat next to his daughter. Catalina and I will always be by your side, and we'll tell you about Marina so you'll never forget her. Sonia nodded, still not letting go of her foster mother's hand. Marina died quietly at dawn. Her last words were addressed to Sonia. Be happy, sweetheart. I will always love you. The funeral was modest. Andres and Catalina covered all the expenses. Neighbors, a few of Sonia's kindergarten friends with their parents, and Andres's colleagues from the hospital attended. Sonia stood between Andres and Catalina, holding their hands tightly. She didn't cry, only watched as the coffin was lowered, her eyes filled with an understanding not typical of a child. That evening, when they returned home, now to Andres and Catalina's apartment, hastily prepared for the child, Sonia finally burst into tears, sobbing inconsolably in her new room, clutching her teddy bear to her chest. Catalina sat next to her, unsure whether it was the right moment to hug the girl, but Sonia herself moved closer and buried her face in Catalina's shoulder. I miss Mom, she whispered through her tears. I know, sweetheart, Catalina stroked her head. It's okay to miss those we love and who are no longer with us. But you won't leave, right? Sonia raised her tear-streaked face. Promise? We promise, Catalina said firmly. We won't leave. At the door, Andres appeared with a cup of warm milk with honey. Here, drink this, he handed the cup to Sonia. It will help you sleep. The girl obediently drank the milk, and Catalina tucked her into bed. Can I call you Mom and Dad? Sonia suddenly asked. Mom Marina said it would be right because you're my real parents. Catalina struggled to hold back her tears. Of course, Sonia. If you want to. I want to, the girl nodded. But I'll still remember Mom Marina. And that's right too, Andres said, sitting on the edge of the bed. We'll all remember her. When Sonia finally fell asleep, Andres and Catalina went to the living room. They sat silently next to each other, holding hands, realizing how much their life had changed in the past 2 weeks. I still can't believe it, Catalina whispered. It's like a dream. But it's reality, Andres replied, squeezing her hand. Our daughter is with us, and now we have to do everything to make her happy. What's next for us? Catalina asked. Official guardianship, court, maybe a legal battle with my mom. We'll manage, Andres said confidently. The most important thing is that Sonia is with us. Everything else is just details. That night, they couldn't sleep for a long time, listening to their daughter's breathing in the next room. Their daughter, whom they had thought lost forever, but who had miraculously returned to them thanks to Marina, a woman who had loved their child as her own and found the strength to let her go so Sonia could find a real family. The first days after the funeral were the hardest. Sonia woke up at night screaming for Marina, and then sat silently, buried in her pillow, refusing comfort. Andres and Catalina took turns sitting by her bed, ready to help at the first sound of crying. Maybe we should see a child psychologist? Catalina suggested after an especially tough night when Sonia cried almost until morning. Let's give her a little more time, Andres answered, stirring his morning coffee. At this age, kids are more resilient than we think. The most important thing is to show that we're here and we're not going anywhere. Catalina nodded, looking at the clock. I need to go to school. We have a test today, but I'll be back early. I took the morning shift off, Andres said. I'll stay with Sonia. Maybe we can take her to the park if the weather holds up? Catalina smiled. She loves the swings. Marina said she could swing for hours. I know. I've been writing down everything she told me. It had become their new ritual, exchanging information about their daughter, whom they were just beginning to get to know, her favorite food, habits, little quirks that made Sonia unique. They caught every detail like precious gems, piecing them together to form an image of their child. That morning, when Catalina left, Andres peeked into Sonia's room. The girl was already awake, sitting on the bed, studying a framed photo, Marina hugging her, both laughing in front of a Christmas tree. Good morning, Sonia, Andres said softly. How did you sleep? Mom Marina came to me in a dream, the girl replied, not taking her eyes off the photo. She said she's happy in heaven with Daddy, but she misses me. Andres sat down on the edge of the bed. That's a good dream. That means she really is watching over you from heaven, like she promised. Sonia nodded. Can I put this photo on the nightstand so I can see Mom when I wake up? Of course, Andres smiled. This is your room. You can put any photos you want here. He helped her set the frame on the nightstand and suggested, how about breakfast, and then we'll go to the park? There are some nice swings there. Sonia's eyes brightened a little. Can we have ice cream? We can, if it's not too cold, Andres agreed. At breakfast, Sonia finally began to talk a bit after the funeral. She told Andres about her garden in their old town, about her friend Maria, who had taught her to make bracelets, about the kitten she and Marina had planned to adopt from the shelter but didn't manage to. Can we get a kitten here? She asked, looking at Andres with hope. I think it's possible, he replied cautiously. We'll need to discuss it with Catalina first, but we need to sort out some adult matters first. What matters? Sonia tilted her head, curious. We need to officially make the papers that we are now your parents, Andres explained. It's called guardianship. Sonia thought for a moment. And can I take your last name, like you have? Mom Marina said I was Sanchez when I was born. Andres's heart tightened at those words. Yes, you were Sanchez, and of course, we'll change your last name back if you want. The girl nodded. I want to. I'll be Sonia Sanchez. It sounds nice. At the park, Sonia really did swing for a long time, insisting that Andres push her higher, higher still. Her laughter, clear and bright like a bell, attracted the attention of passers-by. Some of the villagers, who knew Andres, looked curiously at the girl, but he simply answered their unspoken question with, "This is my daughter, Sonia." They returned home tired but content, with ice cream and a new book from the village store. Sonia had fallen asleep on the sofa with the book in her hands, and Andres gently covered her with a blanket. In the evening, Catalina returned, bringing grocery bags and a new dress for Sonia, light blue with embroidered daisies. I saw it in the store and couldn't pass it by, she confessed. Sonia loves daisies. Marina said. You'll be a wonderful mom, Andres hugged his wife. You already are. I'm scared, Catalina whispered. I'm scared I won't be able to handle it, disappoint her. She's so amazing, Andres. And Marina was the perfect mother to her. No one is perfect, he gently disagreed. But we'll try our best, and we'll make it. The next day, Andres went to the guardianship office with the documents Marina had passed to them. There, he encountered the first barrier, bureaucracy. You claim that this girl is your biological daughter, whom you allegedly didn't abandon 5 years ago, asked the skeptical woman in a strict suit. Where's the proof? Andres laid out the folder of documents on the table. Here it is, witness testimonies, even receipts for money paid for organizing the false abandonment of the child. The woman flipped through the papers, and her face changed. This is a serious accusation, Senor Sanchez. If everything is confirmed, those responsible will face criminal charges. I don't want to prosecute anyone, Andres shook his head. I just want my daughter to officially return to the family. You'll still have to undergo a DNA test, the staff member warned. It's the procedure. We're ready, Andres nodded. The call from the guardianship office came a week later. They went there together, Andres, Catalina, and Sonia. The DNA test results were clear. Sonia was indeed their biological daughter. Now we need to arrange temporary guardianship until the court makes a final decision, explained the same woman, now much friendlier. But with this evidence, there shouldn't be any problems. She looked at Sonia, who was patiently sitting on a chair, swinging her legs. What do you think, Sonia? Do you want to live with Andres and Catalina Sanchez? Yes, the girl answered confidently, they are my real mom and dad. Mom Marina said so. Are you not afraid they might leave, like your foster mom did? Sonia paused for a moment. Mom Marina didn't leave. She's in heaven. And Mom Catalina and Dad Andres promised they won't leave, I believe them. The guardianship worker smiled. Well then, we'll believe them too. It seemed like everything was starting to fall into place. Sonia was gradually getting used to her new home, her new life. In the evenings, she still cried for Marina, but now she allowed Catalina to hug her, comfort her. She grew fond of Andres reading her bedtime stories. His deep, calm voice would lull her to sleep, tightly holding her teddy bear. At kindergarten, where they enrolled her, Sonia quickly made friends. Her open nature and advanced intellect attracted the children. The teacher praised her drawings and suggested enrolling her in an art school. Then Veronica Navarro reappeared in their lives. It happened on a Saturday morning. Catalina was making pancakes, Sonia was helping stir the batter, and Andres was fixing the faucet in the bathroom when the doorbell rang. At the door stood an elegant woman in her 60s with perfect hair and an expensive coat. Her face, still beautiful despite the age, was twisted in anger. "What kind of circus have you set up here?" She barged into the apartment uninvited. "How dare you?" Catalina peeked from the kitchen, and her face turned pale. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Veronica ignored the question. Her gaze quickly landed on Sonia, who had followed Catalina out, wiping her hands on a little apron. "So this is the girl," she sized up the child. She really does look like you as a child, Catalina." "Mom, please." Catalina started, but Veronica didn't listen. "The guardianship called me. Can you imagine? They asked if it's true that I organized the fake documents 5 years ago. Of course, I denied everything, but then I started to find out what's going on, and I learned that you've started this whole scheme with the so-called found daughter." Andres emerged from the bathroom, drying his hands with a towel. "Veronica, good to see you in good health." "Don't play the fool," her mother-in-law snapped. "I've come to put an end to this madness. Do you realize you could be accused of kidnapping a child? There's going to be a huge scandal. Do you understand you'll lose your job, Catalina?" "There will be no scandal," Andres calmly responded. "We have all the evidence, including the DNA test results. Sonia is our biological daughter, whom you illegally took from us 5 years ago." Sonia glanced nervously from one adult to another. "Mom, Catalina, who is this lady?" "This is my mom, Sonia," Catalina answered softly, "your grandmother." "I'm not this child's grandmother," Veronica snapped. "You gave her up, Catalina, voluntarily for the sake of your future." "I was under medication," Catalina said quietly, "in postpartum depression. And you took advantage of that to manipulate me. Everything I did was for your own good." Veronica exclaimed. "You were young, with no prospects, married to a country doctor. A child would have tied you to this hole forever." "This hole is my home." Catalina looked at her mother with pain and anger, "and I'm happy here with Andres and now with our daughter." Veronica turned sharply to Andres. You planned all of this. You ruined my daughter's life, and now you're trying to tarnish me. I'll sue you for slander." "I wouldn't advise you to," Andres said quietly, but his voice held steel. "We have the documents, Veronica, receipts you issued for silence, testimony from the nurse you bribed, even a recording of your conversation with Marina where you practically admit to your actions." Veronica paled. "You're bluffing." Andres silently left the room and returned with the same folder. "Here, you can check for yourself. Copies of all the documents are already with our lawyer and the guardianship authorities. If you try to interfere in our family's life, I'll be forced to file a police report for forgery and fraud." Veronica flipped through the papers, and with each page, her face grew more bewildered. Finally, she slammed the folder shut. "Fine, I won't interfere, but don't expect any help from me." "We weren't counting on it," Catalina replied dryly. Veronica turned to leave but paused at the door and looked at Sonia. "I hope this child is worth ruining your relationship with your own mother." "Sonia isn't this child, Mom." Catalina stood tall. "She's my daughter. And yes, she's worth it and even more." When the door closed behind her mother-in-law, Andres hugged his wife. "You were magnificent." Catalina smiled weakly. "I've spent my whole life afraid to stand up to her, and now it turned out to be so easy. Because now you have someone to fight for." Andres looked at Sonia, who was still standing, confused. "Come here, little one." Sonia approached them, and they embraced her together. "That lady is mean," the girl said. "She yelled at you." "She's just upset," Catalina explained gently. "Sometimes adults say hurtful things when they're upset." "Mom, Marina never yelled, even when she was upset," Sonia noted. "Marina was special," Andres agreed, "and she taught you many good things." Sonia thought for a moment. "Is that lady really my grandmother?" "Yes," Catalina nodded, "but you don't have to call her grandmother if you don't want to." "I'll think about it," Sonia said seriously. "Can we finish making pancakes now? I'm hungry." Life was slowly falling into place. The court legalized the reunion of Sonia with her biological parents, and she was officially given back the surname Sanchez. At Catalina's school, people were understanding about the story and even offered Sonia a place in the preparatory class starting in September. Veronica didn't appear or call. Andres sometimes noticed that Catalina seemed sad about the break with her mother, but she didn't complain. "I have you," she said, hugging her husband and daughter. "You're my real family." Sonia still missed Marina. Every evening, she kissed the photo of her foster mother that stood by her bed and whispered, "Good night, Mom Marina." Then she would go to the living room and hug Catalina and Andres. "Good night, Mom Catalina and Dad Andres." One evening, while putting Sonia to bed, Catalina noticed a notebook on her nightstand. "What's this, Sonia?" "It's my diary," the girl replied. Mom Marina said that when you miss someone, you should write down your thoughts, like you're talking to that person. "I write her letters every day." Catalina gently stroked her daughter's head. "That's a wonderful idea." Marina was very wise. "Are you upset?" Sonia looked at her with concern. "That I still love Mom Marina very much?" "Of course not," Catalina smiled. "There's always room in the heart for love from many people. You can love Mom Marina and us, your mom and dad, at the same time." Sonia sighed in relief and hugged Catalina. "I do love you all." And at that moment, Catalina realized that the wound in her heart, which had been bleeding for 5 years, was beginning to heal. They had lost 5 years of their daughter's life, but there was an entire future ahead of them. And they would do everything to make that future happy for Sonia and for themselves. And on the wall above Sonia's bed, there appeared another photo, Sonia between Andres and Catalina, all three laughing, standing in front of a carousel in the park. A new family, born from pain, loss, and forgiveness, but now whole and real. A year passed. Sonia was finishing first grade, delighting Catalina and Andres with her achievements. She quickly learned to read and write, showing talent in drawing and mathematics. Her classmates loved her for her responsiveness and her ability to reconcile quarreling friends. At home, Sonia blossomed day by day. Marina's photo still stood by her bed, but now it was joined by new ones, family photos with Andres and Catalina, photos with her class, with her new friend Luisa. On weekends, they often went to a neighboring town where there was an art school. Sonia studied painting, while Andres and Catalina strolled through the park, holding hands like newlyweds. Their love, which had been tested so much, had become deeper and stronger. "We should throw Sonia a real birthday party," Catalina said one evening while they sat in the living room. Sonia was already asleep. 7 is an important milestone. "Of course," Andres smiled. "What do you have in mind?" "Let's invite her classmates, have a party in the garden, balloons, cake, games, everything as it should be." Sonia had never celebrated her birthday in a big way. Marina organized modest home parties. Their financial situation didn't allow for more, and after her death, the previous year's birthday Sonia had been celebrated quietly, just the three of them, still adjusting to their new life. "Great idea." Andres agreed. "I'll take the day off. We can have the party in Esteban's backyard, he suggested it recently. There's more space than in our yard. Do you think Sonia will like a noisy party?" Catalina wondered. "She can sometimes be so thoughtful, so mature for her age." "That's normal, given everything she's been through," Andres replied. "But she's still a child and deserves a child's celebration." Catalina nodded, looking at the family photo on the wall. They were together in front of an autumn forest, smiling and happy. "You know, sometimes I think about something," she said quietly. "What?" "About my mom. I wonder if she knows how we're living now. Has she seen Sonia at all this year?" Andres paused. The subject of his mother-in-law was still painful. After their argument, Veronica had disappeared from their lives. No calls, no cards for holidays. "Maybe we should call her," he suggested cautiously. "Invite her to Sonia's birthday?" Catalina shook her head. "No, I don't want to impose. If she wants to be part of our lives, she should take the first step. As if hearing their conversation, fate intervened the very next day. Andres came home earlier than usual and found an unexpected guest in the kitchen. Veronica was sitting at the table while Catalina silently poured her tea. "Good evening," he said, trying to hide his surprise. "Hello, Andres." Veronica looked different from a year ago, older, more worn out. Her elegant hairstyle had been replaced with a simple cut, and her expensive jewelry was gone. "Mom came to talk," Catalina explained. Her voice sounded neutral, but Andres knew his wife well enough to feel the tension. "I'm listening." He sat down across from his mother-in-law. Veronica put the cup she had been holding down. "I came to ask for forgiveness for everything I did." These words hung in the air. Catalina and Andres exchanged glances, unable to believe their ears. "This year has been difficult for me," Veronica continued. "I lost my job, lost friends when the fake document story came out, lost my daughter." She looked at Catalina, and I realized what I had done. "Why now?" asked Andres. "Why after a year?" "Pride," Veronica shrugged. "It was hard for me to admit that I was wrong, that I was not acting out of care for Catalina, but out of control over her life, which caused pain to all of you, took 5 years from you with your daughter, 5 years with her parents." She pulled a small package from her bag. "I don't expect instant forgiveness. Maybe you'll never fully forgive me, but I heard Sonia's birthday is coming up. I would like to give her this." Catalina took the package and unwrapped it. Inside was an old brooch in the shape of a daisy with a pearl in the center. "This is Grandma's brooch," she said in surprise. "You always said you would give it to my daughter when the time came." "And the time has come," Veronica nodded. "Sonia is your daughter. My granddaughter, whether I want it or not. This brooch belongs to her by right." "Mom," Catalina looked at her mother with distrust. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything," Veronica stood up. "I understand that my appearance may be an unpleasant surprise. I just wanted to give the gift and ask for forgiveness. Now I'll go." She turned to leave, but Catalina suddenly called out to her. "Wait. Would you like to meet Sonia?" Veronica stopped, not turning around. "More than anything in the world, but I don't want to impose." "She'll be back from school soon," Catalina said. "If you want, you can stay for dinner." Veronica slowly turned around, and Andres was surprised to see tears in her eyes. "You really want me to meet her? After everything I did?" "I'm not saying everything is forgotten or forgiven," Catalina replied firmly. "But Sonia deserves to know her grandmother. And the rest will depend on you. Can you become the grandmother she deserves?" Andres walked over to his wife and hugged her shoulders, silently supporting her decision. When the front door slammed and a cheerful voice echoed, "I'm home," all three adults froze. Sonia ran into the kitchen, as usual, tossing her backpack into the hallway. "Mom, Dad, we had such an interesting day." She stopped when she saw the unfamiliar woman. "Hello." "Hello, Sonia." Veronica looked at her granddaughter with undisguised emotion. "Sonia, this is my mom," Catalina introduced. "Your grandmother, Veronica." Sonia tilted her head, studying the guest. "Is this the lady who yelled last time?" Veronica turned red. "Yes, unfortunately, it was me. I'm very sorry for my behavior." Sonia stepped closer. "Mom, Catalina says that when someone is ashamed, they should apologize and try not to do it again." "Your mom is right," Veronica nodded. "I came here to do just that, apologize to your parents and to you." Sonia nodded seriously. "Okay, I sometimes do wrong things too, but then I apologize and they forgive me." She extended her hand. "Nice to meet you, Grandma Veronica." Veronica knelt down in front of the girl, tears running down her cheeks. "Hello, Sonia," she whispered, carefully shaking her little hand. "I've been waiting so long to meet you." At dinner, the tension gradually melted away. Sonia, with her childlike spontaneity, asked her grandmother questions. "Where do you live? Do you have a cat? Can you bake pies like Mom Catalina? Veronica answered, trying to be sincere and open. She talked about her apartment in the regional center, how she used to teach literature, and about her garden at her summer house. I'm not very good at baking, she admitted, but I can teach you how to make beautiful cards. That's interesting. Sonia brightened. Can we make a card for Mom Marina? I'm leaving her a message on her heavenly mail. Veronica froze, not knowing how to react. Marina is Sonia's foster mom, Catalina explained. She died of cancer a year ago. Thanks to her, we got our daughter back. Veronica Navarro looked bewildered. Of course, Sonia, we'll make the prettiest card for your mom Marina. After dinner, Sonia invited her grandmother to her room to show her drawings and toys. Catalina and Andres stayed in the kitchen, silently cleaning up the dishes. Are you okay with me inviting her? Catalina finally asked. She's your mother, Catalina, Andres hugged his wife. And I can see you missed her, despite everything. It took me a year to realize that hatred eats you up inside, Catalina sighed. I can't forgive her right away, but Sonia is right, when someone repents, they deserve a chance. I think so, yes, Andres nodded. But with caution. We'll watch how she behaves with Sonia, and if we notice any manipulation. Then we'll protect our daughter, Catalina finished firmly. But I don't think that will be necessary. Mom really has changed. I've never seen her so broken. Laughter came from Sonia's room. Catalina and Andres exchanged smiles. Their daughter had an amazing ability to heal hearts with her sincerity and kindness. A week before Sonia's birthday, they all went to the cemetery where Marina was buried. Sonia insisted on it. She wanted to tell her foster mom about her life, her school, and her new grandmother. She placed a bouquet of daisies and a card she made with Veronica on the grave. Hello, Mom Marina. I came to tell you the news. I now have Grandma Veronica. At first, she was a little mean, but then she changed. She taught me how to make beautiful cards. Mom Catalina says that people sometimes make mistakes, but they can fix them if they try really hard. Sonia paused, tracing her finger over the letters on the gravestone. I'll be in second grade soon. My teacher said I read better than anyone. I also learned to swim. Dad Andres taught me. He says I swim like a little fish. Catalina, Andres, and Veronica stood a little apart, giving Sonia space to speak with Marina alone. She's incredible, Veronica said quietly. She talks so openly about loss, about death, at her age. Marina prepared her, Andres explained. She knew she was dying and helped Sonia accept it. They talked a lot about death, memory, and how love doesn't die with the body. A wise woman, Veronica acknowledged. I'm grateful to her for what she did for Sonia and ashamed that, because of me, this child lost so much time with her real parents. You can't change the past, Catalina said gently, but we have a future, and we want you to be a part of it. Veronica squeezed her daughter's hand in gratitude. Sonia's birthday party was a huge success. Esteban's yard was decorated with colorful balloons and garlands. Sonia's classmates, the neighborhood children, and Andres and Catalina's colleagues came. There was a huge daisy-shaped cake, games, and gifts. Veronica helped set the table, distribute treats, and watched over the younger children. None of the neighbors or acquaintances knew about the past conflicts, and they looked like an ordinary happy family, only missing grandfathers. In the evening, when the guests had left, Sonia, tired but happy, sat on the porch surrounded by her family. This was the best birthday of my life, she said, eating the last piece of cake. Thank you all. Thank you, Sonia, Catalina smiled. You made our life complete. Sonia looked up at the darkening sky. Mom Marina was here too. I know she was watching us from the sky and was happy. Of course, she was, Andres nodded, hugging his daughter. She's always with you in your heart. That evening, while putting Sonia to bed, Catalina noticed a new photo on the nightstand. Next to the portrait of Marina was a family photo taken today, Sonia in the center, with Andres and Catalina on either side, and Veronica next to them. "What a beautiful photo," Catalina said. "I'm glad we took it today." "Yes," Sonia nodded, getting under the blanket. "Now I have pictures of all my family, Mom Marina, you, and Grandma." She kissed Marina's photo as was her tradition. "Good night, Mom Marina. Thank you for finding me a real family." Then she hugged Catalina. "Good night, Mom Catalina. I love you." "And I love you, Sunshine," Catalina kissed her daughter on the forehead. "Sweet dreams." When Catalina came out into the living room, Andres was sitting on the couch, flipping through an old photo album. "What are you looking at?" She sat down next to him. "Our old photos," he showed her a picture of their wedding. "I'm remembering how young and carefree we were back then. We didn't know what awaited us. Do you regret it?" Catalina asked, looking at her husband intently. "Not for a second," he smiled. "We've been through a lot, but now we have everything, each other, Sonia, even your mother has returned to our lives. Our family is whole again, even if not the way we imagined it." "Whole and even more," Catalina agreed. "Sonia has 3 moms, me, Marina, and, in a way, the heavens that keep her." They sat there, hugging, enjoying the silence and peace that had finally come to their home after many years of pain and loss. Outside the window, the summer night slowly descended, and in the children's room, their daughter slept peacefully, surrounded by the love of those who had gone and those who remained to care for her. Life went on, healing old wounds and opening new horizons, and in this life, there was a place for everyone, the living and the dead, the ones who make mistakes and those who forgive, the lost and the found. A place for endless love that doesn't die even when the people who gave it are gone. This was the greatest miracle of their story, the ability of love to overcome any barriers, even time and death. And Sonia, a little girl with wisdom beyond her years in her eyes, understood this better than most adults, uniting in her heart all those who made her life full and happy.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.